The space station floated in the darkness like a small metal moon. It orbited around a dying planet that nobody cared about anymore. Inside the station, something was very wrong. Commander Velnus stood in front of the large glass window and watched the creatures in the room below. They were called Shrikes, and they were the most dangerous predators in 4 different star systems. Or at least they used to be. Now there were only 23 of them left in the entire universe, and all of them were young cubs. The cubs should have been sleeping. Young animals need sleep to grow strong and healthy, but these cubs never slept properly. They walked back and forth in their rooms, their yellow eyes wide open, their bodies tense and ready to run or fight. They looked tired. They looked scared. But they would not close their eyes and rest. Velnus was a Corthan, a species that looked like tall lizards with blue scales and sharp minds. He had run this conservation station for 15 years. He had saved dozens of species from extinction. But the Shrikes were different. Nothing he tried would work. Dr. Kira entered the observation room. She was also a Corthan, but she specialized in animal behavior. Her claws clicked on the metal floor as she walked toward Velnus. She carried a data pad that glowed with information. "The numbers are worse today," Kira said. Her voice sounded tired. Cub 7 Alpha only slept for 20 minutes last night. Cub 3 Beta did not sleep at all. Velnus did not turn away from the window. Below, a young Shrike bumped into a wall because its eyes could barely stay open. But still, it would not lie down and sleep. "What does the medical team say?" Velnus asked. "Their immune systems are failing," Kira replied. "Without proper sleep, their bodies cannot fight infections. We have already lost 2 cubs this month. If we cannot solve this problem soon, they will all die within a year." Velnus finally turned to look at Kira. "Show me what we have tried." Kira activated her data pad and displayed a long list. "We have adjusted the temperature 47 times. We tried complete darkness, soft lighting, colored lighting, and no lighting. We played sounds from their homeworld. We played sounds from other worlds. We tried music, white noise, and complete silence." She scrolled down the list. "We brought in specialists from the Chirathi hive worlds. They built harmonic resonance chambers that should have made any creature fall asleep instantly. The cubs just became more anxious." "What about chemical sedatives?" Velnus asked. "We tried 32 different types," Kira said. "Mild ones, strong ones, natural ones, synthetic ones. Either they did not work at all or they worked too well and the cubs stopped breathing. We cannot risk killing them while trying to help them sleep." Velnus looked back at the window. A small cub, barely old enough to have all its adult teeth, pressed itself against the corner of its room. Its whole body shook with exhaustion, but its eyes remained open. "There must be something we are missing," Velnus said. "Some environmental factor from their homeworld that we have not replicated." Kira's mandibles clicked together in a gesture that meant frustration. "We have analyzed every aspect of their natural habitat. Temperature, humidity, air composition, gravity, light cycles, sound frequencies. We have recreated their homeworld as perfectly as possible, but their homeworld is gone. It was destroyed in the supernova that killed most of their species." "Then what?" Velnus snapped. "What did they have on their homeworld that they do not have here?" "Each other," Kira said quietly. "They had their parents, their pack, their family." The room fell silent. Both of them knew that was impossible to replicate. The adult Shrikes were all dead. The cubs were alone. "The Galactic Council is losing patience," Velnus said. "They have invested millions of credits into this project. If we cannot save these cubs, they will shut down the station." Kira nodded. She had expected this. "What do you want me to do?" "Send out a contract," Velnus said. "Make it open to everyone. Every species in known space. Offer 500,000 credits to anyone who can solve this problem. I do not care if they are scientists or magicians or lucky fools. I just want these cubs to sleep." Over the next 3 months, specialists arrived from across the galaxy. The crystalline lumens came with their light therapy machines. The aquatic Quellis brought water immersion tanks. The telepathic Mindari attempted to calm the cubs with mental suggestions. The insectoid species tried pheromones. The plant-based species tried releasing calming spores into the air. Nothing worked. Each specialist would arrive with confidence and expensive equipment. They would spend days or weeks trying their methods. The cubs would remain awake, growing thinner and weaker. Then the specialists would leave, taking their failure and their equipment with them. Velnus watched from the observation room as another specialist packed up their things. This one was from a species that communicated through color changes in their skin. They had tried to lull the cubs to sleep with calming color patterns. The cubs had just stared at them with tired, frightened eyes. "We are running out of options," Kira said. She stood beside Wellness, watching the specialist leave. "We have tried 43 different species now. 43 different approaches. Nothing changes. What about the Outer Rim territories?" Wellness asked. "Have we posted the contract there?" Kira looked surprised. "The Outer Rim? Commander, those territories are barely civilized. Most of the species there are not even registered with the Galactic Council yet." "Do it anyway," Wellness said. "We have tried all the advanced civilizations. Maybe we need someone who thinks differently." Kira did not argue. She sent the contract to the Outer Rim territories, to the wild edges of known space where new species were still being discovered. 3 weeks later, she received a response. "We have a contractor," Kira told Wellness, "from a species called humans. Their world is called Earth." Wellness accessed the galactic database and searched for information about humans. The entry was short. Earth was classified as a garden world with moderate resources. Humans were bipedal mammals with no special abilities. No telepathy, no enhanced strength, no biological weapons. They had only joined the galactic community 30 years ago. "What are their qualifications?" Wellness asked. Kira checked her datapad. "The contractor's name is Minho. He has a degree in animal behavior from something called Seoul National University. He worked at an animal shelter on Earth for 8 years." "An animal shelter?" Wellness felt his hope dying. "What kind of animals?" "The file says dogs and cats," Kira replied. "Small domesticated creatures that humans keep as companions." Wellness wanted to reject the application immediately. But then he looked through the window at the cubs below. One of them had collapsed from exhaustion but refused to close its eyes. Its small body trembled with the effort of staying conscious. "Fine," Wellness said. "Let the human come. We have nothing left to lose," the message was sent. Minho would arrive in 2 weeks. In the enclosures below, the Shrike cubs continued their endless vigil, too afraid to surrender to sleep, slowly dying from exhaustion in rooms designed to save them. None of the monitoring equipment could have predicted what would happen when an ordinary human from an unremarkable world entered their lives. The sensors and scanners and sophisticated machines would try to measure and record and understand. But some things cannot be captured by technology. Some things can only be felt. The transport ship docked at the station with a loud clang that echoed through the metal corridors. Minho stepped off, carrying a single bag over his shoulder. He was shorter than most of the station crew, with dark hair and eyes that looked calm despite being in an alien space station far from home. Commander Wellness met him at the docking bay. The Corthan commander looked down at the human with barely hidden disappointment. Minho looked so ordinary. He wore simple clothes, carried no special equipment, and had no visible weapons or tools. "You are the animal behavior specialist?" Wellness asked. His voice made it clear he expected someone more impressive. "Yes, sir," Minho replied. He bowed slightly, a gesture from his culture. "Thank you for having me." Dr. Kira joined them, her claws clicking on the floor. She looked at Minho the way someone might look at a broken tool that arrived in the mail. "We should begin immediately. Time is critical. We lost another cub yesterday." Minho's calm expression shifted to something sadder. "I am sorry. That must be very hard." Kira did not know how to respond to sympathy from someone she had not expected to be useful. She simply turned and walked toward the enclosures. Wellness and Minho followed. The hallway leading to the observation room was lined with screens showing data about the Shrikes. Minho stopped to look at them. He saw charts about sleep patterns, stress hormones, and health markers. All of them showed the same thing: the cubs were dying slowly. "How long have they been like this?" Minho asked. "Since we rescued them," Kira replied. "They were the only survivors when their sun went supernova. We found them on an evacuation ship, huddled together in a cargo bay. They have not slept properly since that day. That was 4 months ago. They saw their world die," Minho said quietly. It was not a question. Wellness nodded. "Yes, the adult Shrikes all died in the disaster. These cubs are orphans." They reached the observation room. Through the large windows, Minho could see the enclosures below. The Shrikes were bigger than he had expected. Even the young ones were the size of large dogs with powerful muscles, sharp claws, and teeth designed for tearing. Their yellow eyes glowed in the dim light. Minho watched them pace back and forth. He saw how their legs shook with exhaustion. He saw how they would start to lie down, then jump back up as if something had startled them. He saw the fear in their eyes, They are beautiful, Minho said. Kira looked surprised. Most species found shrikes terrifying, not beautiful. They are apex predators. In their prime, one adult shrike could fight 5 Korthan warriors and win. They are designed to be perfect killing machines. They are children, Minho corrected gently. Scared children who lost their parents. Velnus crossed his arms. Can you help them or not? We have tried everything. Advanced technology, specialized treatments, expert consultation from 43 different species. Nothing has worked. What can you possibly do that we have not already attempted? Minho continued watching the cubs. One of them, a female that was slightly larger than the others, kept looking up at the ceiling as if expecting something to fall on her. She would not let herself relax even for a second. May I go inside? Minho asked. Kira's mandibles clicked in alarm. Inside the enclosure? That is extremely dangerous. These are not domesticated animals. They are wild predators. I understand, Minho said, but I cannot help them from up here. Velnus and Kira exchanged glances. They were both thinking the same thing. If the human wanted to get himself killed, that was his choice. At least they could say they tried everything, including hiring someone from the Outer Rim. Very well, Velnus said. We will observe from here. If the cubs attack, we can activate the stun barriers. But I strongly advise against this. Thank you, Minho said. Which enclosure has the most cubs? Enclosure 7, Kira replied. It houses 3 cubs. They were found together and seem to have bonded. I would like to start there, Minho said. They took him to the enclosure entrance. Kira explained the safety protocols where the emergency buttons were located and how to signal if he needed help. Minho listened politely and nodded at everything. Do you need any equipment? Kira asked. Protective gear? Sedatives? Monitoring devices? No, thank you, Minho said. He opened his bag and pulled out a worn blanket and a small pillow. They looked like they had been used many times before. Velnus stared at the items. What are those for? For sleeping, Minho replied as if this was obvious. Before anyone could stop him or ask more questions, Minho opened the door and entered the enclosure. The 3 shrike cubs immediately noticed him. They stopped pacing and turned to face the intruder in their space. Their muscles tensed, their claws extended. Low growls rumbled in their throats. In the observation room, alarms began to beep. The monitoring systems detected increased stress hormones in the cubs. Attack behavior was likely imminent. This is foolish, Kira said. He will be torn apart. But Minho did not act like prey. He did not run or scream or make threatening gestures. He simply walked to the corner of the enclosure, spread his blanket on the floor, and placed his pillow at one end. The cubs watched him with intense focus. Every predator instinct they had told them to analyze this strange creature. Was it food? Was it a threat? Was it competition? Minho laid down on his blanket. He arranged the pillow under his head and pulled part of the blanket over himself. Then he closed his eyes. The cubs did not know what to do with this behavior. In their experience, other creatures either ran from them or fought them. This creature was doing neither. It had made itself vulnerable. It had closed its eyes in the presence of predators. The largest cub, the female, took a careful step forward. Her claws clicked on the metal floor. Minho did not react. His breathing was already slowing down, becoming deep and steady. Is he actually falling asleep? Velnus asked in disbelief. Kira checked her monitors. His heart rate is decreasing. Brain activity is shifting to sleep patterns. He is genuinely going to sleep in a room with 3 apex predators. This is insane, Velnus muttered. He will be dead in minutes. But minutes passed and Minho continued to sleep peacefully. The cubs continued to watch him. They moved closer, their natural curiosity overcoming their caution. The smallest cub sniffed the air, trying to understand this creature's scent. Minho's breathing remained steady and calm. He did not twitch or startle. He slept the way someone sleeps when they feel completely safe. The female cub moved closer still. She was now only a few feet away from Minho. One swipe of her claws could end his life, but something stopped her. Some instinct she did not understand told her that this creature was not a threat. She watched his chest rise and fall with each breath. She listened to the quiet sounds of his sleeping, and for the first time in 4 months she felt something strange. She felt less afraid. The other 2 cubs seemed to feel it too. They stopped their nervous pacing. They stopped watching the shadows for danger. Instead, they watched Minho sleep. In the observation room, something impossible began to happen. The monitors that tracked the cubs' stress levels showed the numbers dropping. The sensors that measured their brain activity detected patterns they had not seen in months. The cubs were starting to relax. "What is he doing?" Kira whispered. Wellness shook his head. "He is sleeping. That is all. He is just sleeping." But it was not just sleeping. The monitoring equipment began to register readings that made no sense. The electromagnetic fields in the room shifted in ways that had no obvious cause. Quantum sensors detected tiny fluctuations that should not exist. And still, Minho slept. The female cub took another step forward. She was close enough now to touch him. She extended one paw and gently placed it near his blanket. Minho did not wake up or move away. Slowly, carefully, the female cub laid down beside the sleeping human. Her massive body curled into a position of rest. Her yellow eyes finally began to close. The other two cubs watched their companion. If she felt safe enough to sleep, perhaps they could too. One by one, they approached Minho's sleeping form and found spots near him. Within 30 minutes of Minho entering the enclosure, all 3 Shrike cubs were asleep. True, deep, healthy sleep. The monitoring room filled with alarm sounds as the equipment tried to make sense of what was happening. But the scientists could only watch in amazement as an impossible thing occurred before their eyes. The predator cubs slept uneasily until the human entered. And the monitors could not record any pattern that explained why. Dr. Kira ran the diagnostic test for the 17th time. The results came back the same as the previous 16 tests. All equipment was functioning perfectly. The sensors were accurate. The monitors were calibrated correctly. Everything was working exactly as it should, but the readings made no sense. She stood in front of a wall of screens, each one showing different types of data from Enclosure 7. Minho had been sleeping there for 6 hours now. The 3 Shrike cubs slept around him, their bodies finally relaxed, their breathing deep and steady. "Look at this," Kira said to Commander Wellness. She pointed to a screen showing electromagnetic readings. "The field fluctuations are off the scale, but there is no source. No device, no biological emission, nothing that would cause this." Wellness studied the data. His scientific mind struggled to accept what he was seeing. "Run a scan for equipment malfunction." "I have done that 17 times, Kira replied. Her voice was frustrated. "The equipment is fine. These readings are real. We just cannot explain them." Another scientist entered the observation room. His name was Tarek, and he specialized in temporal mechanics. He looked more confused than Kira. "You need to see the time distortion readings," Tarek said. He pulled up his data on the main screen. "There are microscopic fluctuations in space-time around the human. Nothing dangerous, but they should not exist without a massive energy source or a gravity well." "Could it be his biology?" Wellness asked. "Something unique to humans that we have not documented yet?" Kira pulled up Minho's biological scans. "His physiology is completely normal for a human. Heart rate at 60 beats per minute. Brain activity shows standard REM sleep patterns. Body temperature is stable. There is nothing unusual about him physically." "Then what is causing these readings?" Wellness demanded. Nobody had an answer. They watched Minho sleep through the cameras. He looked peaceful, his face relaxed, his body still. The cubs around him looked equally peaceful. It was the first time any of them had seen the Shrikes truly rest. "The cubs' stress hormones have dropped by 70%, Kira reported. "Their immune system markers are improving. Neural activity shows proper sleep restoration. Whatever is happening, it is working." A junior scientist named Hyun approached the group. She was also human, one of the few working on the station. She had been watching the monitors with interest. "May I offer a thought?" Hyun asked. Wellness nodded. At this point, he would listen to anyone. "On Earth, we have done many studies about human sleep," Hyun said. "When humans sleep near someone they care about, especially children or people they feel responsible for, their brain does something interesting. Part of it stays alert. It is not fully conscious, but it is monitoring for danger. Many species have similar evolutionary adaptations," Kira said. "Parents who can wake quickly when offspring are threatened." "Yes, but humans do this for more than just their own children," Hyun continued. "We do it for anyone we have decided to protect. Even animals, even strangers. Our brains identify something as under our care, and then we cannot fully sleep. We are always watching, even when we seem to be unconscious." Tarek looked at his temporal readings again. You think his consciousness is somehow remaining partially active? And that is what the cubs are sensing? Maybe, Hyun said. Predators are very good at sensing awareness. They know when they are being watched. What if the cubs can feel that Minho is watching over them, even though he is asleep? What if that makes them feel safe enough to sleep themselves? It was a theory, not a good one by scientific standards because it could not be tested or measured. But it was the only explanation anyone had. 6 hours after Minho entered the enclosure, he woke up naturally. The cubs woke moments later, as if they had been waiting for him to wake first. Minho stretched, folded his blanket, and walked calmly to the exit. The cubs watched him leave but did not follow. They looked different than before. Less anxious, less afraid. Wellness met Minho outside the enclosure. "What did you do in there?" Minho rubbed his eyes, still a bit sleepy. "I slept." "That is not sufficient," Wellness said. "Our equipment detected unusual readings. Electromagnetic fluctuations, temporal distortions, quantum anomalies. You must have done something." Minho looked genuinely confused. "I just slept. That is all." "The cubs are asleep now," Kira said, joining them. "For the first time in months, they are experiencing healthy sleep cycles. You must understand how important this is. We need to know what you did so we can replicate it." "I do not think you can replicate it," Minho said. "I think they just needed to not be alone." "We have tried companion animals," Kira protested. "We have tried keeping the cubs in groups." "We have tried—" "Not that kind of not alone," Minho interrupted gently. "They needed someone to keep watch, someone to stay alert while they sleep. Predators understand that concept. Someone has to stay awake to warn the group if danger comes." Wellness was beginning to understand. "But you were asleep. You were not keeping watch. Was I not?" Minho asked. He smiled a little. "How do you know?" Before anyone could respond, an alarm sounded from enclosure 7. The monitor showed one of the cubs having a distress response. Its sleep cycle was breaking down again. Without waiting for permission, Minho turned and went back into the enclosure. He laid down in the same spot, closed his eyes, and within minutes the cub settled back into deep sleep. Kira watched this happen with scientific fascination and personal frustration. "He cannot stay in there forever. We need a permanent solution." "Perhaps the solution is him," Wellness said quietly, "or others like him." Over the next few days, Minho rotated through different enclosures. Each time the pattern repeated. He would enter, sleep, and the cubs would sleep. When he left, they would stay calm for several hours before the anxiety started building again. Then he would return and sleep with them once more. The scientific team deployed more sophisticated monitoring equipment. They brought in specialists who studied consciousness and quantum mechanics. They tried to measure every possible variable. The results were always the same. The equipment could detect that something was happening, but it could not identify what or why. There was no energy signature they could measure, no biological process they could track, no physical phenomenon they could name. Whatever Minho was doing, it operated outside the boundaries of their scientific understanding. Dr. Kira spent long hours analyzing the data. She cross-referenced it with every species in the galactic database. She looked for similar phenomena in nature and technology and historical records. Finally, she found something interesting. She called Wellness to her workstation late one night. "I have been researching human evolutionary history," Kira said. "Their planet is unusual. It has more large predator species than most worlds. Early humans had to survive while being hunted by creatures much stronger and faster than themselves. Many species evolve under predator pressure," Wellness noted. "Yes, but humans evolved a unique strategy," Kira continued. "They did not become faster or stronger. They became endurance hunters and cooperative protectors. They would take turns sleeping while others kept watch. This behavior became so ingrained that their neurology changed. Their brains developed the ability to maintain awareness even during sleep." She pulled up brain scans of Minho sleeping. "Look at this. When he sleeps near the cubs, certain parts of his brain that should be inactive during REM sleep show low-level activity. Not enough to wake him, but enough to maintain a monitoring function. So his brain is literally watching over them while he sleeps?" Wellness asked. "I think so," Kira said. "And I think the cubs, as apex predators themselves, can sense this. They can feel that they are being guarded. It triggers their own instinct to rest when a sentry is on duty." Wellness looked at the sleeping human on the monitors. Minho looked so ordinary, so unremarkable. But inside his sleeping brain, something extraordinary was happening. Something that millions of years of human evolution had created. This has implications, Wellness said slowly. If humans have this ability naturally, if they instinctively protect and guard other species even while unconscious. Kira nodded. The Galactic Council needs to know about this. Humans are not just another species, they are something different. In Enclosure 7, Minho slept peacefully while 3 apex predators dreamed safe dreams around him. The monitors recorded everything and understood nothing. Some things in the universe could not be measured by machines. Some things could only be felt in the deep ancient parts of the brain where instinct lived. The Shrike cubs felt it. They felt the presence of a guardian, the awareness of a protector, the promise of someone who would not sleep through their danger. And for the first time since their world died, they believed they might survive the night. 3 weeks passed. Minho moved through all the enclosures on the station, spending nights with different groups of Shrike cubs. Each time the result was the same. The cubs would settle, sleep deeply, and wake up healthier than before. The station's medical team documented dramatic improvements. The cubs' immune systems grew stronger. Their bodies began to develop properly. The constant stress hormones that had been killing them slowly decreased to normal levels. For the first time since the rescue, the survival rate predictions changed from grim to hopeful. But Commander Wellness had a new problem. He stood in his office with Dr. Kira and several other senior staff members. On his desk was a report that disturbed him deeply. The Galactic Council has been reviewing our findings, Wellness said. They have concerns about humans. Dr. Kira was not surprised. She had spent weeks studying human biology and behavior. What she had learned frightened her more than she wanted to admit. Show them what you found, Wellness said to Kira. Kira activated a holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, showing scenes from human history. I have been researching human civilization extensively, she began. What we are seeing with Minho is not unique to him. It is a species-wide trait. The images showed humans with various animals, dogs, cats, birds, horses, and dozens of other creatures. Humans do not just domesticate animals for food or labor. They adopt them as family members. They form emotional bonds with creatures from completely different species. Many species keep pets, one of the staff members said. Not like this, Kira replied. She changed the image to show a human crying at a veterinary clinic. Humans grieve when their animal companions die. They cry, they hold funerals. They experience the same emotional pain as if they lost a family member. More images appeared. Humans rescuing animals from disasters. Humans spending their own money to save injured wildlife. Humans risking their lives to protect creatures they had never met before. This is pathological behavior, Kira continued. From a survival standpoint, it makes no sense. Humans will endanger themselves to save animals that have no benefit to their survival. They will spend resources on creatures that cannot repay them. They will feel guilt over harming insects. She pulled up psychological studies. Their empathy circuits misfire constantly. They assign emotions to objects that have no consciousness. They feel sad when they see broken toys. They apologize to furniture when they bump into it. Their ability to care about things has no rational limits. Wellness watched the presentation with growing unease. What is your conclusion? Humans are dangerously compassionate, Kira said. Their instinct to protect and nurture extends beyond their own species, beyond biological logic, beyond self-preservation. They will adopt anything as part of their pack, and once something is in their pack, they will defend it regardless of cost. She changed the display to show human military history. But here's what truly concerns me. Humans are also persistence predators. On their world, they hunted prey by chasing it until it collapsed from exhaustion. No other species on Earth could match their endurance. Images of human weapons appeared, simple stone tools that evolved into complex technology. They are creative problem solvers who turn everything into a tool or a weapon. They looked at birds and invented flying machines. They looked at the stars and decided those were places they could go. Kira let that information settle before continuing. Now combine these traits. A species that never stops pursuing what it wants, that adopts other species as family, and that will fight to protect anything under its care. Do you see the problem? The room fell silent. If humans decide the galaxy needs protecting, Kira said quietly, they will not stop until every corner of known space is under their watch. And if they decide something is a threat to their adopted family, which could include any species they have bonded with. They will pursue that threat with the same endurance they use to hunt prey on their homeworld. Velnus understood now why the Galactic Council was worried. They could be either our greatest protectors or our most relentless enemies, depending on how they categorize us. Exactly, Kira agreed. And we cannot predict which instinct will dominate. The nurturing guardian or the persistent hunter. Another staff member spoke up. But Minho seems harmless. He is gentle with the cubs. He has shown no aggressive behavior. That is because he has categorized them as things to protect, Kira said. Watch what happens when he perceives a threat to them. She showed footage from 2 days earlier. A maintenance robot had entered one of the enclosures to repair a ventilation system. Minho had been sleeping with the cubs. The moment the robot entered, Minho woke instantly. He placed himself between the robot and the cubs. His body language changed completely. He became alert, ready, dangerous. The robot was no threat, Kira explained. It was just doing routine maintenance. But Minho's unconscious mind identified it as a potential danger to the cubs. Watch his response. On the footage, Minho did not attack the robot, but he did not relax either. He stayed positioned between the robot and the cubs until the maintenance was complete. His eyes tracked every movement. His muscles stayed tense and ready. This is the other side of human nature, Kira said. The protector and the predator are the same creature. They watch with the same eyes. They use the same brain. The only difference is what they are protecting and what they are hunting. Velnus turned off the display. What does the Council want us to do? They want more data, Kira replied. They want to understand human psychology better before humans spread too far into the galaxy. We are one of the first stations to work closely with a human. They want detailed reports. Over the next week, the research team observed Minho more carefully. They documented not just what he did with the cubs, but how he thought, how he made decisions, how he categorized the world around him. They noticed he had named all the cubs, even though the station policy was to use numerical designations. He called the large female in enclosure 7 Bomi, which Hyun explained was a Korean name meaning spring. The smallest cub he called Hanul, meaning sky. Why does he name them? Velnus asked Hyun. Because once something has a name, it is not an object anymore, Hyun explained. It is an individual. Someone he has a relationship with. Humans need that connection. They observed that Minho spent his free time in the enclosures even when he was not sleeping. He would sit and watch the cubs play. He would talk to them in Korean, his voice soft and encouraging even though they could not understand his words. What is he saying? Velnus asked Hyun to translate. Hyun listened to the recordings. He is telling them they are brave, that they are strong, that they survived when everything else died, and that means they are fighters. He is telling them their parents would be proud. Velnus felt something uncomfortable in his chest. It might have been respect. It might have been fear. He was not sure which. The research revealed something else interesting. Minho's sleep patterns changed depending on which cubs he was with. When he slept with the younger, smaller cubs, his protective monitoring was stronger. The quantum readings were more pronounced. When he slept with the older, healthier cubs, the effect was gentler. He is adjusting his guardian response based on perceived need, Kira noted. His unconscious mind is assessing which cubs require more protection and calibrating his awareness accordingly. Can he control this? Velnus asked. I do not think so, Kira said. I think it is automatic. Like breathing or a heartbeat. His species evolved to do this, so he does it without thinking. The final piece of data came from an unexpected source. The cubs themselves began to show behavioral changes beyond just sleeping better. They became calmer around other station staff. They played more, which was a sign of healthy development. They started to explore their enclosures instead of just pacing nervously. But the most significant change was this. The cubs began to protect Minho in return. When staff members entered the enclosures while Minho was sleeping, the cubs would position themselves around him. They would watch the staff members carefully, ready to defend the human if needed. They have bonded with him, Kira said, showing Velnus the footage. They see him as part of their pack now. The relationship is reciprocal. He protects them, so they protect him. Velnus watched a young Shrike cub, barely old enough to be dangerous, growl at a scientist who got too close to sleeping Minho. The cub's message was clear. Do not disturb him. This is what humans do, Kira said. They create families out of nothing. They build packs from different species. They form bonds that should not be possible. And once those bonds exist, they are unbreakable. Wellness thought about the implications. Humans had only been part of the galactic community for 30 years. They were still considered a minor species, unremarkable and unimportant. But if every human had this ability to bond with and protect other species, to create loyalty where none should exist, to guard and be guarded in return. The galaxy is not ready for humans, Wellness said quietly. No, Kira agreed. But humans are already here. The question now is what we do with this information. In the enclosures below, Minho slept peacefully while apex predators stood guard over him. The monitors recorded the impossible readings and filed them away in databases that could not explain them. Somewhere in the data was the answer to what made humans unique. But it was not in their strength or their intelligence or their technology. It was in their stubborn, illogical, completely irrational refusal to let anything they cared about face the darkness alone. 6 months after Minho arrived at the conservation station, Commander Wellness stood in the Galactic Council chambers on the planet Corthus Prime. Around him sat representatives from 200 different species, all waiting to hear his report about the Shrike cubs and the human who saved them. Wellness activated his presentation. Images of healthy, thriving Shrike cubs appeared on the displays. The conservation project has been successful. All 23 cubs are alive and healthy. Their survival rate is now projected at 98%. They are growing properly, developing normal social behaviors, and showing every sign that they will reach maturity. Applause rippled through the chamber. The Shrikes had been considered doomed. This was a victory for conservation efforts across the galaxy. However, Wellness continued, and the applause died down. The success of this project has revealed something concerning about humanity that the Council must address. He showed the data that Dr. Kira had compiled. Brain scans, behavioral analyses, historical records from Earth. He explained the guardian instinct, the pathological empathy, the persistence-hunting heritage. He showed footage of Minho sleeping while quantum readings went wild around him, while temporal distortions appeared and disappeared, while cubs that should have been terrified instead felt safe. Humans possess an ability we do not fully understand, Wellness explained. They create bonds with other species that transcend biological logic. They protect what they have adopted into their care with absolute commitment, and they do this unconsciously, automatically, as naturally as breathing. A council member from the Chirathi hive spoke up, their translation device converting clicks into words. Is this human dangerous? Should we restrict human movement in the galaxy? That is the question we must answer, Wellness replied. Are humans a threat or an asset? Another council member, this one from the aquatic Quella species, asked, what does the human himself say about this ability? He does not understand it, Wellness admitted. When we ask him how he helps the cubs sleep, he says he just sleeps. When we show him the monitoring data, the impossible readings, he seems genuinely confused. He does not know he is doing anything unusual. The council chamber filled with concerned murmurs. A species with abilities they themselves did not understand was unpredictable. The head of the council, an elderly Corthan named Vex, spoke. What is your recommendation, Commander? Wellness had thought carefully about this question. I recommend we study humans more closely, but not restrict them. If we make them enemies, we face a species that never stops hunting what it has marked as prey. If we make them allies, we gain protectors who will never abandon their responsibilities. You want us to adopt them before they adopt us, Vex said with understanding. Exactly, Wellness replied. The council debated for hours. Some wanted to limit human expansion, to keep them confined to their own sector of space. Others argued that humans were too useful to restrict. Their ability to bond with and calm other species could be valuable in diplomatic situations, in conservation efforts, in colony management. Finally, they reached a decision. Humans would be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, but with a special designation. They would be classified as guardian species, the first species to receive this title. It came with certain privileges and certain responsibilities. While the council debated policy, life on the conservation station continued. Minho had completed his original contract and earned his 500,000 credits, but when offered the payment and transport back to Earth, he asked a different question. Can I stay? Minho asked Commander Wellness. The cubs know me now. I think leaving would be bad for them. Wellness had expected this. It was the most human thing possible, to refuse wealth and home in order to stay with creatures he had bonded with. We can offer you a permanent position, Director of Xenofauna Care. You would oversee the well-being of all the cubs as they grow to adulthood. Minho accepted immediately. Hyun, the other human scientist on the station, approached Minho one day with a question. They stood in the observation room watching the cubs play in their enclosures below. Do you know what you are doing? Hyun asked. When you sleep with them, I mean. Dr. Kira showed me the readings. The quantum fluctuations, the temporal distortions. Do you feel anything unusual? Minho thought about it. I dream more, he said finally. When I sleep with them, I have very vivid dreams. Always the same kind. I am watching something, protecting something. Sometimes it is the cubs, but sometimes it is other things. My dog from childhood, my younger sister. Students I used to teach. The dreams all feel the same. I am standing guard. You are standing guard even while you sleep, Hyun said softly. Your mind never fully rests when something needs protecting. Is that strange? Minho asked. Hyun smiled sadly. For most species, yes. For humans, it is just what we do. She told him about the Council's classification of humans as a guardian species. Minho listened quietly, his expression hard to read. Do you think that is accurate? Hyun asked. Are we guardians? Minho looked down at the cubs. Bomi was teaching the younger cubs how to pounce properly. Hanul was napping in a sunny spot, finally able to sleep during the day without fear. All of them looked healthy and strong and alive. I think we just cannot help it, Minho said. When we see something that needs help, we help. When we see something that needs protecting, we protect. We do not think about it. We just do it. Even when it is not logical? Hyun asked. Especially when it is not logical, Minho replied. The things worth protecting are never logical. News of the Shrike Cubs' recovery spread across the galaxy. Other conservation projects began requesting human consultants. Zoos asked for human caretakers. Rehabilitation centers wanted human staff. The demand was so high that Earth's government created a new program to train people for xenofauna care positions. But something else happened too. Other species began to understand what human presence meant. When a human was assigned to a station, to a ship, to a colony, it meant someone would keep watch. It meant someone would notice if something was wrong. It meant someone would stand between danger and whatever they had decided to protect. Pirates learned to avoid ships with human crew members, not because humans were the best fighters, but because they would never surrender if they thought someone under their care was threatened. They would fight past logic, past survival instinct, past the point where any reasonable species would quit. Diplomats learned that negotiations went smoother with a human observer. Not because humans were clever negotiators, but because their presence somehow made everyone more willing to find peaceful solutions. It was as if their guardian nature created a field of safety that affected everyone nearby. Scientists learned that human colleagues would notice things others missed. They would check on experiments late at night. They would worry about whether the lab animals were comfortable. They would remember to water the plants. They watched over everything, even things that did not need watching. On the conservation station, Minho settled into his new life. He rotated through the enclosures each night, sleeping with different groups of cubs. As the cubs grew older and more confident, they needed him less. But he stayed anyway, just in case. One night, Wellness found Minho sitting in the observation room very late. All the cubs were sleeping peacefully in their enclosures. You do not need to be here, Wellness said. The cubs are fine. They can sleep without you now. I know, Minho replied. But what if they have a nightmare? What if something scares them? I want to be here, just in case. Wellness understood then what Dr. Kira had been trying to explain. Humans did not guard because it was necessary. They guarded because they could not help themselves. It was built into them at such a fundamental level that removing it would mean they were no longer human. You will stay here every night, will you not? Wellness asked. Even after the cubs are fully grown. Even after they no longer need you. Yes, Minho said simply. Why? Minho smiled a little. When I was young, I had a dog. Her name was Dubu. She was afraid of storms. Every time it rained, she would shake and hide. So I would sit with her. I would stay awake during the whole storm, just so she would know someone was watching, someone would keep her safe. After a few months, she stopped being afraid. But I still sat with her during storms. Because what if she got scared again? What if this was the storm that brought the fear back? I could not risk her being alone if that happened. He looked at the sleeping cubs on the monitors. These cubs lost everything. Their world, their parents, their future. They survived when everything else died. That kind of trauma does not just go away. Maybe they will sleep fine for the rest of their lives. But maybe one night they will remember what they lost and be afraid again. I want to be here for that night. Wellness felt that uncomfortable feeling in his chest again. Respect. Fear. Something else he could not name. You would stay here forever just for one possible bad night? Yes, Minho said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Wellness left him there watching over sleeping predators who no longer needed watching. But the human watched anyway because that was what humans did. Years later, when the first Shrike cubs reached adulthood and were released back into protected territories, they carried something with them. A learned behavior that Shrikes had never shown before. They adopted orphaned cubs from other predator species. They protected creatures weaker than themselves. They stood guard while others slept. The scientists called it remarkable. They said the Shrikes had learned social behaviors from human contact. But Minho knew better. The Shrikes had not learned to protect others. They had simply learned what it felt like to be protected. And once you knew that feeling, once you had been guarded through your darkest fears, you wanted to give that gift to others. The cubs had learned to be guardians because a guardian had saved them. And that, more than anything, was the real pattern the monitors could never record. Not the quantum fluctuations or the temporal distortions or the electromagnetic anomalies. The pattern was simple. The pattern was human. The pattern was love expressed through vigilance, safety provided through presence, comfort given through the simple act of staying. The Shrike cubs had slept uneasily until the human entered. The monitors could not record any pattern that explained it. But the cubs knew. In their dreams, they knew. Someone was watching. Someone would always watch. And that was enough.